Sir, Prime Minister Modi has just given a speech at 8 p.m. And it's very kind of you that you are traveling and you are joining us from outside India. So thank you for taking out time and apologies for disturbing your trip. But it's very important time and everybody has been wanting your take, especially after the tweet by President Donald Trump, where suddenly the announcement of ceasefire was made even before India made it or Pakistan made it. Prime Minister has clarified certain aspects in the conference today, but I'll come to that. So, sir, my first question is this because diplomacy has really changed from measured statements to a world of Twitter and TikTok, where everybody, especially politicians who have campaigned in getting the word out first, because the algorithm of whosoever is out first makes it very viral. So there is, I think, a change in the thought process, even for a person like Trump. So, sir, in this world, how serious is anybody's tweet as a policy, especially knowing Donald Trump?
Well, actually, one need not pay too much attention to social media, uh, tweets on the social media by politicians or others who don't matter, though, of course, because of the manner in which social media is used, a kind of narrative can get built up, which can then compel uh, countries, politicians to react because these things can't go unchallenged. But in the
Mhm.
case of Trump, you have to take it both seriously and non-seriously. Seriously because he's been making very very important policy announcements through Twitter
Mhm.
or through X,
Mhm.
letting it be known in advance what executive order he's going to issue or
Mhm.
what other policy um, uh, announcement he's going to make. Uh, and therefore, you can't just dismiss it as meaningless. That's one aspect. The other is that he's very loose in terms of what he says. Not always, because he implements many of the things he says.
Mhm.
But but he surrounds his Twitter things with a lot of what you might call noise, in the sense that many times his facts are wrong. Uh, in the case of India Pakistan, for example, he says they have been fighting a war now for 1,000 years. Now, Pakistan only got created in 1947. So things like that. Uh, but the United States being the most powerful country in the world,
Mhm.
and Trump therefore having a lot of power in his hands as US president,
Mhm.
and whatever he does, because he's whimsical or unpredictable or he's serious
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
constructive, whatever he does has
Mhm.
repercussions. So you can't
Mhm.
simply ignore it. So that's one aspect. The other is we've seen that very often he changes his position. Now,
Mhm.
if you come to, let's say, Ukraine and Russia, he said within 24 hours I'll solve it. And then it became 30 days, then it became 90 days. And now he blows hot and cold. Sometimes he says that everything is on track, we're going to have a big announcement. At another time, he says that, you know, uh, he might reimpose or he might impose new sanctions on Russia.
Mhm.
Russia doesn't seem to be interested. Putin doesn't seem to be interested. So, at what stage do you conclude that his bark is more worse than his bite? Can you take a chance? Can you go by past um, conduct of his where he very easily steps back from a firm position he has taken and is willing to make compromise? He's been extremely severe on China at the end
Mhm.
of the day, imposing 145% or more. I think it went up to over 200% or whatever
Mhm. Mhm.
of
Mhm.
tariffs. And now I heard
Mhm.
that he has signed a kind of a trade agreement with China.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So that's what the uh, background is about the current use by politicians of
So, but the issue of worrying, as you said, with Mr. Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, is that he is the president of the most powerful nation. And India has worked very seriously in delinking Indo-Pak, in saying that Kashmir is not an international issue. Today at 8 p.m., the Prime Minister reiterated it. But in Trump's mind, if he starts relinking the issue, and today, if I just play the clip of that statement, sir, because that is the worrying part. It's just 1 second, sir, because that is where he's saying that I held out trade to both the parties. And I said that whosoever will not sign this deal, I will not do trade with that person. So that problem that he is in his mind, he is saying that I, in a sense, forced people into negotiation. A and B, is it the risk of internationalizing the Kashmir dispute? That is the second point, sir. And how serious do you think is that chance? Because India is very clear, we will not do it. Today, the Prime Minister said only talks I have with Pakistan will be on terror, nothing yet, period.
Are you going to play the clip or shall I answer your question?
Sir, you please answer. I think just putting the clip on. You please answer, sir. I think so.
Well, the thing is that I had not read that part of his tweet where he has said is that he's going to. What I read was that he's going to increase his trade with both countries. Now his trade with India is $200 billion. His trade with Pakistan is 7 point something $billion. Even if he increases trade with Pakistan by 100%, it is only $14 billion. If he increases it by 100% with us, it becomes how much? $400 billion. Now, this is the kind of loose talk. What is he going to increase trade with Pakistan? In what commodities? In what services? So this is just empty talk. And secondly, if he's actually said, which I don't know unless I see the
Sir,
clip.
I'll just play the. I'll just just putting the clip on where he's basically saying that trade and I am. I will just play the clip, sir, the exact quote because he gave it just 10 minutes ago while we were
Oh,
shooting. He did a press conference 5 minutes ago and he speaks off the cuff. So he is linking some trade deals to permanent ceasefire. So I will just play it. But as you said, sir, he changes his mind 10 times a day. But so the bigger risk,
well,
except trade, the Kashmir, is it the risk of him trying to internationalize the issue? That, sir, we need some. What do you think would be the thinking of Indian government on that?
few things. One, that he is now acting as a bully, and he's acting as a bully with India. I'm shocked at what you have attributed to him just now, that he'll cease
Hmm.
trade. It's a totally empty threat, but it shows his state of mind. Secondly, he's showing no respect for India and its concerns and the factors which led India to actually strike at Pakistan at the terror camps. He's totally ignoring the terror aspect. And secondly, when he says that he wants to resolve the Kashmir issue, on what basis? If he publicly says that he will make sure that Pakistan vacates POK or POJNK, yes, we would welcome that. In any mediation, in any resolution of the Kashmir issue by a third party, uh, the manner in which other countries and especially United States in the past have intervened in the Kashmir issue, they have all demanded concessions from India. They've never demanded any concession from Pakistan. Even now, on the terror issue, in the statements that he has made, he has not really focused on what caused India to intervene militarily. It was the Pahalgam terror attack, and not only that, it's the long standing promotion of terror, sponsorship of terror by Pakistan against India. And India's first reaction was to strike at the terrorist hubs in Pakistan. Now he's ignoring all that. And by offering mediation, apart from the fact that it's an indirect way of seeking concessions from India, he's creating the equivalence between India and Pakistan. He's hyphenating once again India and Pakistan. He's politically, morally, and militarily equating India and Pakistan. Uh, so, therefore, yes, we have to humor him, but beyond a point, we can't humor him. Therefore, we have to stand up firmly and then see where it goes. I mean, he cannot treat India with such little respect and actually equate India as the biggest democracy in the world with a military dictatorship and with a bigoted mullah as the head of the chief of the army staff or chief of army of Pakistan. I mean, this is not recognizing facts in their face. Now, another corollary of this is this U.S. activism in terms of Kashmir, raising the Kashmir issue and making it international and obscuring the whole terrorism part is the G7 statement. The
Hmm.
G7 statement, again, It doesn't mention anything about terrorism. It asks for restraint. It asks for whatever, the usual thing, dialogue and diplomacy. Uh, but all right, for a moment, let's say that
Sir,
uh,
may I play the Donald Trump clip first before the G7, sir?
On Saturday, my
okay.
administration helped broker a full and immediate ceasefire, I think a permanent one, between India and Pakistan, ending a dangerous conflict of two nations with lots of nuclear weapons. And they were going at it hot and heavy, and it was seemingly not going to stop. And I'm very proud to let you know that the leadership of India and Pakistan was unwavering, powerful, but unwavering in both cases. And having these, they really were, from the standpoint of having the strength and the wisdom and fortitude to fully know and to understand the gravity of the situation. And we helped a lot. And we helped also with trade. I said, come on, we're going to do a lot of trade with you guys. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. If you stop it, we're doing trade. If you don't stop it, we're not going to do any trade. People have never really used trade the way I used it. That I can tell you. And all of a sudden they said, I think we're going to stop. And they have. And they did it for a lot of reasons. But trade is a big one. We're going to do a lot of trade with Pakistan. We're going to do a lot of trade with India. We're negotiating with India right now. We're going to be soon negotiating with Pakistan. And we stopped the nuclear conflict. I think it could have been a bad nuclear war. Millions of people could have been killed. So I'm very proud of that. I also want to thank Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio for their work and efforts. They work.
He says we do a lot of trade with them. You heard the clip, and if they don't, we will stop the trade. And suddenly they agreed. He lives in his own world, but as you said, he's the president of US, so we have to discuss it, sir, and we need your inputs on and your wisdom on that.
Well, I think one answer to this would be to not show any or take any step to start any kind of dialogue with Pakistan. As you know, Rubio had announced that the two parties will be meeting in a neutral location to discuss a wide range of issues. Now, one answer to that, and I hope the government is firm on this, is not to do this. Because if you did this, I mean, then what kind of a country are we? We can just be kicked around just because the US president makes these outlandish statements that he's going to stop trade with India because India has no right to react to a terrorist attack by Pakistan and a long history of terrorist attacks by Pakistan against India. Uh, that will be a step we must take. We should not bend on that. And for the rest, whatever the dialogue we have with the United States, we should carry on to the extent that the United States wants to have that dialogue with us. It'll be a big setback to Trump and U.S. Foreign policy if he's seen as step by step destroying the whole process of expansion, deepening strategic ties with India. What does he gain from this? What does he gain from this? Nothing. And what does he gain by befriending Pakistan and raising and elevating it to the same level as India? What for? What is he going to get out of that? He is no longer in Afghanistan.
Mhm.
The China-Pakistan relationship cannot please the United States of America, Trump or otherwise. Strategically, United States neglected this progressive deepening of ties between China and Pakistan to the point that China has become the biggest defense partner of Pakistan. And the CPC and the through CPEC has now access to the Arabian Sea, which then gives it the possibility of expanding its footprint as it is doing in the Arab world, in which America and Trump is greatly invested. And the whole concept of Indian Ocean and everything else, uh, where India and United States are cooperating in terms of deterrence to China, has been undermined already by China getting these corridors to Myanmar into the Bay of Bengal and
Mhm.
into the Arabian Sea by the CPEC. So even there, the entire Indo-Pacific concept and cooperation in the Indian Ocean has been affected by this American unwillingness to address the issue of Chinese penetration into the Indian Ocean. If you allow me 1 minute, when I was Foreign Secretary and I had these official talks with Richard Armitage, who was the US Secretary of State, now I'm talking of 2002, I raised
Mhm.
with him the issue of Gwadar, and he didn't answer during our discussions, he didn't respond to what I said. Towards the end, I reminded him again.
Mm.
After outlining what the potential dangers were, I said, "You've not reacted." He
Mm.
said, we've not thought about it. And he left it at that. So this is the thing that
Mm.
why is he equating India and Pakistan? What does he get out of Pakistan? In his first term, what did he say? That we given $33 billion to
Mm.
Pakistan and we received zero from them. He was very
Mm.
hard
Mm.
on Pakistan.
Mm.
So
Mm.
how have things changed? What has Pakistan done after his first term, which he thinks needs Pakistan to be
So
supported?
that is why I started this with Donald Trump, the president. One doesn't know what is a tweet without any meaning, what is a deep policy issue, how do you judge what is just an instinctive tweet of his hyperbole, his New York way of speaking, and what is a thought out policy position. So, in that sense, the complex world has become slightly more complex with a president he may do absolute opposite of that, but he may do exactly that. So, those questions are, but the Prime Minister today was very clear. No talks with Pakistan, as you are also suggesting, sir, except on terror. Period. He's saying, I'm not doing anything else with Pakistan, sir. But, sir, IMF, during the time Pakistan is, in a sense, in a war with India, approves suddenly a loan of $2 billion or some. Sir, why is the international community, even today, and what are we as a nation not managing well in the international community, that there is still a lot of support for Pakistan, whether we admit it or not? It contributes nothing. It is going with a begging bowl, but it keeps getting the charity. And then that becomes like a parallel of West funding Ukraine. Is the West, in a sense, funding Pakistan against Bharat?
They've been doing this all this while, though, mind you, I won't go as far as to say that the IMF bailouts have been intended only because they wanted to bolster Pakistan against India. But I think uh, what they really wanted to do was to save Pakistan from itself. I don't know if I have said this to you before, but let me recount to you something else also. Is that when I was foreign secretary, no, when I was ambassador to Turkey, the number two in the U.S. embassy in Turkey became later the undersecretary of state in the State Department.
Mm.
So when and I naturally dealt with him when I was foreign secretary. And after he retired and after I retired, I happened to meet him and I asked him. I said, "Now you're freer to talk. Tell me, why is it that you have long ignored Pakistan's terror activity directed at you, everything else?" And I spelled out. He said, "Look, let me tell you something. You will never get we will never get what you want from the United States on Pakistan." He says, "We have had discussion after discussion in the National Security Council, in other forums, where everyone says all sorts of negative things about Pakistan. But one person then says, look, it's a country of 200 million people with nuclear arms. You have to engage it." And the conversation ends there. And everybody closes their files and gets up and goes. This is the reason why uh, they continue to support Pakistan now. And the belief is, look, they got they have nuclear weapons. They don't want an Islamic finger on the nuclear trigger. But in a sense, there's already an Islamic trigger on Pakistan's nuclear button, and that is that of the Chief of Army Staff. He's a
Mm.
wretched mullah in military uniform. He talks like one. And the DG ISPR, I heard his
Mm.
the manner in which he's speaking about how jihad is part of the motto of the Pakistan army.
Mm.
He couldn't speak 5 sentences without multiple references to Allah and Islam and everything else. There already is, in a sense, in Islamic, how should I say, uh,
Sir, I want to come to the.
on the
Sir, I want to.
nuclear
Sir,
trigger. Yeah. Mm.
so you were in service when the nuclear deterrent, in a sense, of Pakistan or blackmail came. I want to come to that, but before that, because you mentioned Turkey, sir, and India did a lot of humanitarian aid to Turkey when it needed it. Yet Turkey is one of the first countries which send a plane to Pakistan, which has sold drones to Pakistan, and is firmly in the corner of Pakistan, and the other one being Azerbaijan. So, sir, where and what is our strategy? Because the Islamic world apparently did not support Pakistan that much this time. At least they didn't come out in the beginning very strongly. Then certain statements did come. So, sir, we seem to have managed that slightly better, but Turkey and all is still firmly with Pakistan. And secondly, sir, globally, no nation except probably Israel openly supported Bharat also. So, in this conflict, other nations with our economic power, with our ability to be attracting investments, with our ability now of manufacturing weapons, selling, being a trading partner, etc., we bring a lot more to the table. What is the gap, sir, where we are not getting the global support, and Pakistan still, at least with these nations, manages to get that?
Well,
Divorce of US.
with Turkey also, I can recount something to you.
Yes, sir.
When I was ambassador to Turkey, uh, I was told I had very good relations with the Turkish Foreign Office. I must tell you, they were very helpful. And Ozal was president then, and then we had made a breakthrough in our relations between him and Rajiv Gandhi. And the bargain was that we will not say anything on the Kashmir issue. You say nothing about the Cyprus issue. Grosso modo, putting it in simplistic terms. And that's how the relationship began to develop. But I was told, they said, look, your problem is that when the Pakistani diplomats come to us, they say that we are the descendants of your Turkish Empire in India, the Mughals. So this is the kind of self-debasement that the Pakistani diplomats were willing to do with Turkey. And Turkey has long been a role model. President Musharraf used to speak a lot about Turkey very positively. He wanted to structure the Pakistani National Security Council on the basis of the Turkish model, where the Pakistan military had actually a sitting role, participatory role on national security issues. Uh, and now the Turkish social, these programs, these um, serials are extremely popular in, in Pakistan. And then, as you know, Turkey, Pakistan, and Malaysia got together to see if they could build up an alternative, conservative Muslim uh, 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 kind of a group to balance uh, Saudi Arabia's hold over the Islamic world, as Saudi Arabia under Mohammed bin Sultan was moving towards modernization, discarding extremism and radicalism and this and that and that. They felt that there was a void that was being created in the Islamic world on a larger strategic basis about how the Islamic world, unified Islamic world, should act against the West and others. And they were trying to do that. It didn't quite work. So therefore, there's a history of Turkish Pakistan relations. So therefore, I'm not surprised that Turkey has done that. Though Turkey, in the past, including Erdogan, he has visited India. And Abdullah, the other president whom I knew well, also visited India. So there was a phase when we were trying to actually improve our ties with Turkey, but they have been set back because of the Muslim Brotherhood inclination of Erdogan and his general expansionist Ottomanesque uh, role in the region. And with regard to other countries, uh, the short point is that no country publicly is going to support India and say, go ahead and do what you want vis-a-vis Pakistan. Though, mind you, initially Vance seemed to say that you are within your right to do something, but don't sort of go beyond a certain point, and it should become a regional conflict. So there was a flexibility in the point of view. In Trump's first term, when we had Balakot, he said that India has a right to self-defense. But the tune seems to have changed now for reasons I can't easily comprehend. And once United States takes that kind of a position, the others have that diplomatic cover also to take that line. Japan, for instance, it would, at the end of the day, toe the American line. The EU or the European countries, and that brings me to the G7 countries largely,
Mm,
they
mm,
are the
mm,
European countries and Canada
mm,
and the United States. They will also tune their statements to actually coincide with the largely
mm,
political with what the United States
mm,
say. And at the end of the day, two, three reasons. The same one, Pakistan, 220 million people or whatever the number.
mm,
Very large
mm,
country, no doubt, uh,
mm,
with nuclear weapons, very
mm,
strategically placed. Uh,
mm,
and they want to keep it as a point of pressure against India. They have very ambivalent views about Kashmir. They have never
mm,
fully accepted India's position. It goes right
mm,
back to the UN discussions and this and that. They have never formally accepted Kashmir as being an integral part of India. They
mm.
may play around a little bit here and there, but they've never done that. Uh,
So even recently, Washington Post just put this article out. Gunmen launch a rare attack on tourists in Indian-administered Kashmir. So their policy seems to be Indian-administered Kashmir.
that is one. The other is that uh, the media, the think tanks, the NGOs, the human rights organizations,
Mm,
they have over the years created such a negative narrative about
mm,
India's conduct in Kashmir that
mm,
stepping back from it is extremely difficult for them emotionally, intellectually, and politically. And at the end of the day, when the media and the think tanks and the NGOs and human rights organizations take a particular view, it is difficult for the political leadership of those countries to altogether ignore this. They have to take into account. That is another reason why they are mealy mouthed when it comes to terrorism. They
mm,
don't want to use the word terrorists, even now, what you showed me,
mm.
militants,
Gunmen.
and rare
Gunmen, sir.
and rare attack. I mean, it's been
Mm,
happening so often. Yes, in recent past there hasn't been any big attack, but how do they call
mm.
it a rare attack when there's a whole history going back to
Sir,
the Middle East?
New York Times does one better. I'll just put it on the screen where when they're describing what happened, they say Mr. Rubio called Pakistan's foreign minister Ishaq perfectly fine foreign minister, and India's nationalistic external affairs minister. Sir, the adjective nationalistic comes for our foreign minister, not Islamist, nothing for the Pakistani. How pejorative words are used without
This is new. This was earlier
New
being
York Times.
no earlier. This was never used against the external affairs minister.
Mm,
It was always about the ruling party, the
mm,
the Hindu nationalist government, the Hindu
mm,
nationalist party,
mm,
the Hindu nationalist strongman
mm,
Modi.
mm,
But the first time he's been used against the external affairs minister because he's been rather blunt in some of his statements
mm,
against the
mm.
European.
Mm,
So I think that they are now reacting
mm,
to that. But you're absolutely
mm,
right. That this is the kind of vocabulary they use, very extremely tendentious, in order to build a
mm,
narrative. Now, once New York Times calls him a nationalist
mm.
leader,
Foreign minister.
foreign minister, now you find that others will follow suit and start using the same vocabulary to tarnish him, and therefore, in their view,
Mm,
diluting his impact of his
mm,
argument,
mm,
giving it an ideological cover, not a rational
mm,
cover,
mm,
not an intellectual cover, but
mm,
an ideological cover. Oh, yes, because he's a nationalist, he used to talk like that. Because once you
mm,
have the epithet nationalist, it's
mm,
sort of to fascism and whatever else.
mm, mm,
Very unfortunate, but there it is. And that, in part, also explains why we can't get our message across on Jammu
mm.
and Kashmir and Pakistan's terrorist activities against India.
I doubt, sir, on lighter side, foreign minister would have ever thought he would be Hindu Hriday Smart the way they are going in New York Times or Washington Post. But, sir, now coming to India, what do you think has India, because terror attacks have happened before also, 26/11, even parliament attacks, sir. What has decisively changed in India and what is its impact vis-a-vis India, Pakistan, all the events from Pahalgam to the ceasefire or so-called ceasefire of Operation Sindoor? Because today the Prime Minister made a very important point. He said the Operation Sindoor is only static, it's only paused. I will wait and watch what Pakistan does, and I will resume if need be on terror as well as military infrastructure.
Hmm. I think I didn't see his speech, but I'm very glad that he has said this. In fact, in a sense, this is an answer to Trump. That whatever your view on what India should do, what concession India should make, and the
Mm,
dialogue we should have, a broad-based dialogue that we should have
mm,
with Pakistan
mm,
in a neutral country, and
mm,
the threat of, uh, in fact, in a sense, uh, uh, putting roadblocks in the trade deal that we are negotiating when he says that I cease trading
mm,
with. I laud Prime Minister for having said this. He said this is a clear riposte to Trump, and it needed to be said. And it's a tough message. But if we talk, We'll be only talking about terror. This is something which he has said before, and
mm,
that we will go ahead and destroy Pakistan's military infrastructure if they continue their terror attacks against us. Um, it also then rules out any conversation, talks in any third part, in any location elsewhere, for the simple reason that
mm.
Pakistan will never agree that the only subject that needs to be discussed between India and Pakistan is
It's
terrorism.
terror.
They will
Mm,
always link it to a resolution of the Kashmir issue.
mm,
And then
mm,
they will remind the Americans that you had said that
mm,
you want to help resolve the Kashmir dispute once and for all, and therefore you
mm,
suppress India. That we can't have just talk on terror; it has to be on a broader basis. So the thing will end in an impasse. And what we have gained by what we have done
mm,
is very important. A few things. One, of course, is that the Indus Waters Treaty abeyance, being held in abeyance.
mm,
Clear signal to Pakistan and the international community. You don't control terrorism, then we'll control the flow of waters to you. This is a warning to you.
mm,
This is something which we haven't done in the past, and we have done that. Now we got a weapon in our hands, which we will not use immediately. We'll see how Pakistan conducts itself. Secondly, and that is very important, and I must say and congratulate the Prime Minister for taking this decision to attack Pakistan proper. Remember in Balakot, we did it with great hesitation, with a lot
mm,
of apologies in advance that we not attacking any military installation,
mm,
just on the edge of Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Pakistan
mm,
proper.
mm,
We did
mm,
one small limited attack with great
mm,
reluctance, fearing that this might end up in a
mm,
you know, conflict with Pakistan. But this time we've gone ahead and attacked their air bases all over, right up to Karachi and Chakalala
mm,
and
mm,
Rahim Yar or whatever it's called,
mm,
Rawalpindi,
mm. Rawalpindi.
which is the seat of the Pakistan.
Mm, mm,
Military. So therefore, and then of course taking out the terror hubs in
mm,
Pakistan, whether it is
mm,
LET or whether it's Jaish-e-Mohammed,
mm,
whether
mm,
it's
mm,
Murid or in or Bahawalpur.
mm,
These are
mm,
major steps that we have taken.
mm,
And thirdly, we have got rid of this inhibition that Pakistan is a nuclear weapon state, and therefore,
mm,
if we launch a military operation against them, it might escalate into a nuclear conflict. We have demonstrated that we are not
mm,
going to be inhibited because of the Pakistan threat to raise
mm,
the level of confrontation to a nuclear one.
mm,
Because it is not our intention to
mm,
actually, uh, how should I say, uh, uh, target Pakistan to the point that their existence is threatened or pose an existential threat to Pakistan. What for? Uh,
mm,
We have reconciled ourselves to the creation of Pakistan. We just want to live in peace with Pakistan. Our bottom line basically is stop this terrorism business, which in effect means that stop all this thing about claiming sovereignty over Jammu and Kashmir and periodically disturbing the situation in Jammu and Kashmir with all the impact it has on the rest of India. That is, we can't continue to tolerate. Therefore, a lot of barriers, a lot of self-imposed inhibitions, they have been discarded, and Pakistan has got a clear message. Now, whether Pakistan behaves or whether it again tests our resolve by small attacks here and there, challenging us whether a small attack will actually lead us to um, launch a major conflict. Because, see, Pahalgam was traumatic, traumatic. The manner in which it was done. So blatantly religious in nature, asking people if Hindus or Muslims or whatever, in some cases, taking pants down to verify if this was killing them brutally in front of their wives and children. It was intolerable. And these were people from all over India. But they can again test our resolve by small attacks against military people, against convoys and this and that, and see how India reacts. So it will be a challenge for us. And I like to be realistic about this, which is that no country has found a way to uh, win the war against terror, including the United States, with all its military might. I mean, it destroyed Iraq, destroyed Syria, destroyed Libya, whatever, Afghanistan. But at the end of the day, they were not able to wipe out the terrorist threats. Even Israel, despite the fact that it is flattened Gaza, doesn't mean necessarily the end of terrorism. Therefore, this is a challenge that India will continue to face and the international community will continue to face. But unfortunately, the international community is not actually looking down the road and seeing that it is genuinely a collective fight. And India needs to be supported in this because Pakistan is a very big hub of international terrorism. So look, the Palestinians and all, they're not involved in international terrorism. It is Israel directed. Even so-called Iranian terrorism is not international terrorism. It is regional and Israel directed. It's Pakistani where they are involved in international terrorism, not only against India. Taliban, Osama bin Laden, Al Qaeda, the World Trade Center, they had a finger in that. And there are other instances I can mention where actually the attack on the Egyptian president in Sudan when he visited, and I was ambassador in Egypt at that time, it had a Pakistani fingerprint in it.
So going that far back, they've
Going
always been the.
exactly. So after all, the United States never acceded to our request to designate LET as an international terrorist organization because the belief was that these are not international terrorist organizations, that this terrorism is a product of the unresolved India-Kashmir issue between India and Pakistan. So it can't be characterized as an international terrorist thing. But when they found the LET fingerprints beyond India, in Afghanistan and elsewhere, then the United States declared it declared it an
But
international terrorist organization.
So, but do you think there is a qualitative difference because the two examples you gave of nations facing terror, US and Israel. US has a global footprint. It's the top of the hill. So everybody who has a problem, whether it's their fundamental beliefs or whether US involvement, oil, etc., has a problem with US. It's not one country specific. Israel is in a region where they think it's their land. So that's, but is India's problem only Pakistan, or you think irrespective of Pakistan being balkanized, if it ever happens, the problem would still persist because then if it is only Pakistan, we are slightly in a qualitatively different position than US or Israel's war on terror. Then it's effectively a war on one nation, which is using terror as a tactic.
I would say that if Pakistan gives up its sponsorship of terror against India, then I don't think the ISIS or Al Qaeda or anybody else would still continue to back terrorist activities against India. If they are in any way involved here and there, it is largely because of the Pakistan link that they have. Now, even look at the Taliban.
Mm.
We were very fearful that the Taliban, and there's a history to it, IC 184 and all that, that we would have problems with the Taliban returning to power in Kabul.
Mm.
And
Mm.
Pakistan was very happy that this
Mm.
had happened. So the Haqqani fellow, he went all the way there. And the ISI chief went there to try and help them form a government in which the Haqqani
Mm.
group have a major role, because they
Mm.
were the moderate of for Pakistani influence there. But now they are fighting each other, and the Taliban has promised that they're not going to do anything vis-a-vis
Mm.
India, or, uh, by way of terror or anything else, and they haven't done
Mm.
it yet.
Mm. Mm.
So therefore, I personally feel that if I don't think it's going to happen, if Pakistan really see Pakistan giving up the instrument of terror against Kashmir is actually means giving up the Kashmir issue,
Mm. Mm.
because if they continue their rhetoric on Kashmir in the United
Mm.
Nations General Assembly with other countries in the OIC,
Mm.
this and that,
Mm.
and continue to talk about human rights violations
Mm.
and people in Kashmir struggling for independence and getting
Mm.
resolutions passed,
Mm.
and doing their international diplomacy and doing their propaganda and
Mm.
agitating along with the Sikh Khalistanis and
Mm.
others in Canada, UK,
Mm.
and elsewhere, United States.
Mm.
This will then give the necessary fuel to
Mm.
terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir by the radical groups. So actually, it would mean a total change of mindset in Pakistan with regard to Kashmir, which means a total change of mindset of the street in Pakistan,
Mm.
because the street in
Mm.
Pakistan has been radicalized. Look at Imran Khan. I mean, the kind of
Mm.
statement that he's been making in the UN General Assembly, or
Mm.
Shahbaz Sharif. This will mean that when it comes to Kashmir Day, what will they say? They'll have to use the same rhetoric. Uh,
Mm.
and
Mm.
when they
Mm.
use the
Mm.
same rhetoric, what does that mean?
Mm.
They are egging on, inspiring, incentivizing these fellows. The other point I want to make is this: they say, "Oh, in the Indian attacks on Bahawalpur and wherever else, civilians have been killed." I ask the question:
Mm.
Aren't terrorists civilians? After all, they're not wearing military uniform. They are
Mm.
civilians who are
Mm.
radicalized.
Mm.
So
Mm.
when a civilian is killed, this does not mean that a terrorist has not been killed.
Mm. Mm.
So,
Mm.
so since they have control over,
And And sir, in their case, what our military leadership said, and the Prime Minister also spoke, that a terrorist's funeral has been attended by military of Pakistan, from Lieutenant General to Major General, went to that funeral and attended it. So that, in a sense, has given global proof. Whether the globe notices or not is a separate issue. But the army is going there openly.
they are not noticing it. The global media is not noticing it. They're totally ignoring this. The other point is that since they control a part of Jammu and Kashmir, uh, when they say, "Oh, it's the people in Kashmir who are fighting for their freedom and this and that, they're responsible for it," what does it mean? Uh, let's say a Kashmiri from Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir comes and does
Mm.
an attack. Is it Pakistani sponsored, or is it the Kashmiris who are fighting for their freedom and this and that? So they can easily blur the lines and then ask
Mm.
for proof. Oh, it's the local people who've done this who are dissatisfied. But what do the local people mean? A large part of the
Mm.
local people they control from in Pakistan, Jammu and Kashmir, and they use them and they train them. So they play with a lot of ambiguities
Mm.
in this, and the world just laps up those ambiguities very happily without applying their mind.
Mm. Mm.
And unfortunately, and it's regrettable, there's not much we can do. That the narrative somehow always swings in Pakistan's favor.
Mm.
And my concern is that the belief, as I see from the social media and international
Mm.
reporting in the West,
Mm.
the kind of questions even our ambassadors are asked, which are always based on the Pakistani version of things, that Pakistan has emerged victorious from this recent um military confrontation between the two countries.
Mm.
Uh, a few here and there are acknowledging that
Mm.
Pakistani military air bases have been attacked and this and that. Otherwise,
Mm.
The narrative is that Pakistan has come out victorious, that they've downed our Rafales.
mm,
Uh, we've had aircraft losses, uh,
mm,
and uh, and all this business about jubilation in the streets here and there about Pakistani thinking they're victorious,
mm,
or Shahbaz Sharif in the parliament boasting that he's been victorious and
mm,
this and that.
mm,
Unfortunately, it appears to me, at least publicly, there is not a realization
mm,
internationally that Pakistan has got a severe
mm.
beating. And if that narrative that Pakistan is victorious, has emerged victorious, or there has been equal kind of result between the two sides, then this will not deter Pakistan from continuing what they have been doing for the last God knows how many years.
So my last two questions, because what you're saying, international media is saying it's equal or Pakistan has benefited, but the leadership, military as well as civilian of all nations has intelligence. So they would know what actually happened, including the Pakistan military and leadership. They know what has happened because we have stuck. So does that, even though in public, even Pakistan, I was showing a newspaper clipping of 1971 after Pakistan lost and surrendered. The headline in Dawn was, if I recall it correctly, I just posted it the other day, fighting ends in the East.
Mm.
Not that we have surrendered, just fighting ends in the East and now moves to the Western border.
Mm.
So that chest beating on public they can do, and international media has no skin in the game. But leadership, military levels, they know. So knowing the psyche of Pakistani leadership for decades, as you do you think it is going to be an inhibiting factor on them that India can hit so deep and so hard, which has real-time consequences on them?
In the short term, yes. In the short term, yes. Now, whether in the medium term, this would mean that they would give up this arm of terrorism, or generally step back from the Kashmir issue in very virulent terms, that they use this stick to beat us internationally, is, to my mind, in the short term, maybe, but in the medium term, no. Because this means a total change in governance in Pakistan, in the balance of power within the Pakistani system, where actually the custodians of these terror groups are the armed forces.
Hmm,
And once
hmm,
that
hmm,
is taken away from the system, then then you are in a situation where Pakistani military, cannot be the principal political force in the country on the basis that they are the ones who are the custodians of the idea of Pakistan. Look, if the Pakistan military is somehow weakened, defeated, genuinely, not in the short term. After all, you've had military, even Musharraf had to run out of the country. Um,
hmm,
Zia was killed and whatever else.
hmm,
But if really the Pakistani army is is weakened to the point, then I think there's a big question when Pakistan can remain a unified country. Because Balochistan and the Northwest Frontier Province and even Sindh and this thing against Punjabi domination, which means the domination of the Punjabi army. If that
hmm,
army loses prestige genuinely and durably, and is not able to play politics in the system as it has been doing all these years, then there are serious question marks about the future of Pakistan as a stable, unified country. It may not break up, but it will be in constant more and more turmoil internally. But any case, this is just speculation. I don't think that. I'm very skeptical that Pakistan will mend its ways, because it is all linked up structurally to the manner in which Pakistan is governed.
So we are effectively in a pause zone, and let's see how long the pause lasts. But sir, my last question is slightly different on China, because a lot of people believe it is China egging on Pakistan. A lot of people believe with manufacturing shifting, Trump initial policies, Apple growing and manufacturing in India way better than its initial norms, etc., etc. And where Apple goes, the manufacturing of high tech in the world goes. Do you think what is the China role and India is doing sufficiently vis-a-vis China, or we are in the right track vis-a-vis China, with China egging Pakistan? And how do you see that playing out in the at least the short term, sir?
Two, three things. One is that we've kept the doors open to China all these years. Even when China attacked us in 1962, we didn't break diplomatic relations. We put them in a freeze of sorts, but we didn't break diplomatic relations. And then we reopened channels to Pakistan to China under Rajiv Gandhi. And then there was some considerable progress and relative normalization during Manmohan Singh's period. And then we started receiving setbacks. Though, mind you, even Modi had two meetings with Xi Jinping, informal summits with him, quite apart from other meetings. Uh, but China is China, totally untrustworthy. They're double faced, triple faced, or God knows how many faces they have. You never know what they're thinking. The system is totally opaque. The leadership speaks at all levels in identical terms. They have a certain diplomatic vocabulary from which they don't depart. So really, you don't know. There's no internal discussion on what China is doing right or wrong in foreign policy. There are no dissenting voices. So you can't even gauge what the public opinion genuinely is, or whether there are pressure points within the system. So at the moment, I must say that at one level they're showing a fairly relatively engaging phase, even on their statements on what has happened in Belgaum, which they condemned. And when it came to, first of all, they haven't reacted on the Indus Waters Treaty. They haven't on this issue of India's military action. They've called for the usual thing: dialogue and diplomacy at the official level, dialogue and diplomacy, and calming down and that. So I think in part it is because they are greatly under pressure by the United States of America, and they want to put up a positive face. The propaganda has been that we are not like America. We don't create disputes. We don't commit aggression. We are not destabilizing. Whatever we do, it is win-win. We want to focus on development. Now, if they were to take a very aggressive stance on the India-Pakistan issue officially, then that narrative would no longer be credible. And now we know that they have been engaged in serious talks, trade talks with the United States of America. So this is not the time for them to take this action, to take any visible, aggressive pro-Pakistan line and threaten India. At the same time, they have built up the Pakistani military. And I can guarantee you, now I don't know whether Pakistan will have the money or won't have the money to do it. But Pakistan have learned lessons from what has happened, where the weaknesses are. Their defense system hasn't sufficiently worked. There may be other gaps in their defense system which they have discovered, and they try to fill them. And who will they go to? Nobody else will give them what they want. China will. China will. And therefore, China, Pakistan nexus will remain a very big strategic threat to us. So China will play at both ends like they do with us. Then look, on the border, yes, we will continue to confront you, but let's normalize our relationship in other areas, because that's a legacy of history, the border issue. But you have to gain from us, and we can work together and stuff like that. And they've succeeded in molding part of the Indian public opinion to think along those lines. That's the big manufacturing power. It is the biggest supplier of intermediate goods to us for our exports. We can't turn our back. We should take the maximum advantage from China's manufacturing capacities to build ourselves, open up in non-security areas, Chinese investments and everything else. That narrative has also been fueled by China. And China controls a large part of the Western newspaper media because of the money they have been giving to them over the years. And through them indirectly, they get their anti-Indian viewpoint expressed. At the same time, officially with us, they maintain a dialogue. And I think we have been wise in let's say, Doval talking to Wang Yi, or the Chinese ambassador being briefed as part of the briefing we gave to the members of the Security Council on what happened in Pahalgam and our reaction. This and that. This is wise on our part to keep them in the loop. Be very clear that they are actually the biggest strategic threat to us going forward. But at the same time, we have to manage that. And we also know they have to manage the relationship with India. And that gives us some room for some kind of normal diplomatic dialogue
Mm.
with them. So that's what we are doing.
So you said Pakistan economy. I'm sorry, I'm asking. I said I'll just ask two questions. The last, absolute last one, where they say that Pakistan doesn't have the budget for it. Ronald Reagan did this Star Wars thing, effectively making USSR spend more money, the arms race. So Pakistan will have to be part of the arms race. Their military leadership knows what happened to them. That they were literally Indian armed forces went in like a playground, wanted to do whatever they wanted to do. So do you think that is another crisis without money? Now you're having to rebuild your military and upgrade it to the level of Bharat. That is another potential crisis, sir, which is
Yeah,
boiling
you're
up.
right. You're right. But look, I'm not a military person, so I don't know what our capacities are and what Pakistan's capacities are on the ground. Uh, but it's not as if we can defend every inch of our territory. There always will be gaps.
Mm,
And look at our relationship with China. We've confronted them on the border for around
mm,
almost 5 years now. Uh,
mm,
we have
mm,
troops facing each other. We pushed them back in Doklam. In the dark, we have stood our ground, knowing that there's a huge disparity between India and China in terms of overall military power.
mm,
So Pakistan can also live with disparity. India can be very strong, but if Pakistan has enough capacity to do damage to us, apart from the nuclear capacity, that is a thing that we can't ignore. And so, therefore, Pakistan need not match us weapon for weapon. But if they can see where they can also hurt us, where whatever the nature of our defenses, they could perforate that, uh, then they will try to acquire that kind of capacity. So now, whether they'll have the money to do it, not have the money to do it, yes, they will. It will be an handicap, and therefore, our target should be, if we can, uh, economically weaken Pakistan to the maximum extent. And in that, the Indus Waters Treaty can play a big role in terms of damaging uh, American Pakistani agriculture, which is the basis of their economy. But this is an in extremis solution. But we have the weapon in our hands, which we can use and periodically threaten them. If we start building our projects without consulting them, and the
mm,
3 million acres of feet which we are entitled to in terms of
mm,
irrigation can draw that water away. These are very, very powerful signals. But Ishkaran, this is not the end of the story. Pakistan is not a normal country. So when you're not dealing with a normal country which does not
mm,
actually see what it is its own interest,
mm.
then what do you do? What do you do?
So then we will again come to you for your wisdom, whatever develops, because while the hot war may have paused, the water war is on. The Prime Minister has not spoken on Indus water. The suspension remains in place. And let's see, sir, how the water war and economic war develops. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Sorry for disturbing you on your
My,
travel, but it was quite important.
my,
Thank you, sir.
my, all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.